Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and in today's video we have a very special guest. Mina will be joining us for today's sort of news show and discussion. How are you doing?
I'm good. After yesterday's result, the feeling could have been different, I can't lie, but I'm doing good.
Yeah, honestly, as I was saying to you just before recording, I almost was sending out these rage tweets. Bruno scored. It stopped me from... But yes, thank you so much, Mina, for coming on. Guys, make sure to check out her links in the description, show her some support. But we're going to talk about a few news stories. We're going to talk about, is Ruben Amorim being backed? Is he upset with INEOS? We're going to talk about Garnacho, Dorgu, Casemiro, sort of Rashford, Antony, the latest on that. And we're going to dive on with sort of this story to begin with here. And it was said that Ruben Amorim is frustrated by Manchester United's inactivity so far in the winter transfer window. Sources have suggested Amorim was not fully aware of Manchester United's financial issues when he agreed to take over as head coach in November. United sources have denied that and insist Amorim was given a full and transparent breakdown of the club's finances when outlined. Blah, 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 blah. Mina, so far, do you feel that, Amorim has the right to be a little bit frustrated with how recruitment's going ins and outs?
Yeah, I do think so, because at the end of the day, I think firstly it's not easy coming in the midpoint of the season, because I anticipate that they must have said something to him about the January transfer window in terms of the squad that he has to utilize between November up until January. And it's not just even like with the even with the outgoings, I feel like Manchester United have been moving slower. I mean, last week Fabrizio posted about here we go for Antony, and it's taken over a week and a bit to kind of get that out. And I feel like a lot of the reports emphasize the importance of outgoings to bring in some players. And historically a lot of clubs don't spend much in January. I mean, I saw a report that said Man City have spent about 120 million this window, and Premier League teams last January window altogether spent about 130. So Man United don't really spend a lot in the January window, but when you look at the situation with the system, like the Amorim system and the players that are available right now, and just the flaws in the system as a result of the players and the profiles that you have, I can imagine the manager being frustrated, and I wouldn't blame him. I feel like he's probably walked in. There's a meme, I think it's from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's a TV show where the guy walks into a room with a pizza and the whole room's on fire. I feel like that's Amorim with Manchester United. He probably walked into the situation happy to be at Manchester United. It's a dream job, and he's realized, oh my God, the situation is a lot worse on the inside than what you know from the outside. And that's scary.
Yeah. I fully agree with you there. I feel like Ruben Amorim knew it was going to be a challenge, but I don't think he realised how much of a challenge it's going to be. You can see with the press conference and the story of him smashing a TV in the dressing room, he's like, oh my, I've got work to do. And I think when we've known that for a while, because results haven't been going Amorim's way ever since he's come in, and we're nearly at the end of the window and nobody's come in. I think it's concerning, and we're going to touch upon this later, but it's clearly obvious that Rashford's not wanted, Casemiro's not wanted, but they're still here. And it's not just the incomings. Dorgu, we're going to talk about that in just a second. It looks like he's going to be incoming, but the outcome is the frustration. I feel for Amorim. I read a story saying that that he wanted a left wing back to come in within the first 2 weeks of the January window. Obviously, that's not happened. Now, right now, there is news saying that United have sent in a bid for Patrick Dorgu. I want to ask your thoughts on this. And actually, what price would you say that's too much? Walk away.
I saw that they did that his club want 40 million euros, which is about 33 million pounds. I feel like, okay, I think he's a good player. I wasn't familiar with him up until links to Manchester United, but when I looked at the left wing backs that Manchester United could have gone for in the summer, or maybe even in the January window, I don't think the main players like the Noris, like the Kirkes, like the Robertsons, that Premier League teams are not going to be willing to let their players go unless it's for a really big premium price. And I do feel like, we were talking about this off camera before we recorded, I do feel like Man United are going down this path of aiming to sign young potentials with the hope of kind of developing them into a world beater. And Jim Ratcliffe said this when he took over Man United. He doesn't want to sign Mbappe. He wants to sign the next Mbappe. But I think you also have to find a balance of that in your squad. You can't just have an entire team that the average age is under 24 or under 23. I like the idea of Dorgu. I've watched him a little bit, but I think 40 million euros is a premium price. And any team that is selling a player in January are going to look for a premium price, because if you're letting a player go in the middle of the season, it has to be for the right price. But Man United, I think, can't afford to go the next 4 or 5 months without a left wing back. Like, genuinely speaking, when I watch Man United every single game, they cannot afford to go with this left wing back situation that they have right now. Is so bad, and I don't know if people agree. I don't know if you agree. And I'm not saying like a left wing back will be the biggest difference maker in the team, but you got to start somewhere. But I hope Man United don't get fleeced. I hope they don't get fleeced financially.
100% saying exactly what I was thinking. Left wing back, we can't not sign one. It's so crucial to Amorim's system. You know, we've played a back four all these years. We don't have wing backs. Like, I think Deleuze is a decent player, but not at left wing back. You know, I've had enough of it. We need someone there. But I really agree with the comment you made on we need a mix of young talent, but also players that are ready now. You know, my first choice would have been Kirkes, just because he can do it in the Premier League. He's ready now. And when we were linked him in the summer, I said I'd like to see him have one more season at Bournemouth just to fully judge him. And now I've seen him play this season, like, he's really stepped up. But with Dorgu, from the little bits that I've watched of him, and I remember watching him sort of play last season before he was linked to United, and it did catch my eye just how he likes to drive forward and that attackingness. I think knowing Amorim and what he wants in a wing back and his versatility, I think it's a good signing. But for me, it's a £25 million signing. Man United come knocking, all of a sudden they want £34 million. I think it's difficult, but profile-wise, I think he could be right for Amorim's system. And at the end of the day, INEOS put us in this position by not just getting Ruben Amorim in the summer when we could have gone and got the wing-backs in then. We're going to have to overpay. And I think I would, looking at it now and what we need, if we're not going to get Kirkes, we're not going to get Antony until the summer, we need someone now. I completely agree with you. And I think he's coming in because Antony is set to go. We got the here we go last week. It says he's going to Spain. It's done. That Real Betis will cover 84% of Antony's wages, which I'm quite happy with personally myself.
How did United pull that off?
I know, because I think he's on like 200k a week.
Yeah.
I thought we would have got mugged off for that and stuff. But do you think it's good to get Antony out on loan, get the minutes in him?
I think the most important thing is, like you said, getting the minutes, but also being able to drive up his potential price in the summer. And we'll talk about it when we get to Rashford, but that's why I think it's important if you want to move a player on in the summer and you have no space for them in your squad right now, get them a loan move. Even if Man United got a good deal out of this in terms of 84% of the salary being covered, but even if it was 50%, I would have said United should do it, because otherwise you're just going to leave him to rot more at Manchester United, and then his price will kind of depreciate in the summer, and it'll be a harder player to shift. And you look at all of the, I don't want to say deadwood, but there's a lot of players at Manchester United right now, senior players that are not playing. Marcus Rashford, Casemiro, Victor Lindelof, Christian Eriksen played against Rangers, but when was the last time we actually saw him get? I think the last time we saw him was towards the end of December, starting for Man United. So there's a lot of players that are not playing. They're not starting, they're not getting any minutes, but yet Manchester United can't shift them. So if you find yourself in a position like with Antony, where, a loan spell could actually do him well in terms of confidence for himself, and if Man United don't have a future for him in the summer, hopefully 5 months of playing football elsewhere will maybe drive up his price by like 5-10 million. I don't think Man United will get anything near what they paid for. Like, I don't even think they'll get like 50% of that.
We won't even get half,
If you're looking at the market now and you're saying like Garnacho is going for 60 million, then Antony will go for like maybe just under half of that, maybe at best.
Yeah, at most. And I think like with the wages, it makes it so much more difficult to sell them. There's players like Rashford that are a much better player than Antony, and we can't even really get him out because of wages. Casemiro out because of wages. And I've always said Antony's unsellable. We spent 85 million on him. We 10 times his wages from 20k to 200k a week, which I don't know how we were that stupid to offer him those kind of wages in the first place. And I don't blame INEOS for not being able to offload Antony to an extent, because I think you didn't give him 200k a week. That was Murta. That was Arnold. And I think for me, he's not going to really play under Amorim. He's not good enough. He's had his chances. Garnacho took his place. Ahmad took his place. Tenol gave him more than enough chances. And I think it is just like, get him on loan, hope his loan goes well, so then someone wants to buy him. But there's one player that I think people are a bit more split on selling. I think everyone's sort of in agreement, let's move Antony on. It's Garnacho. We've got Chelsea set to bid in a region of about £60 million. Man United will reportedly accept a £60 million bid, even if it's from rivals Chelsea. This is what we're asking Napoli for. Apparently they've submitted their bid, but again, mixed sources. There is reports that would look at Tyler Dibbling to replace Garnacho. And one report that came out just recently was that United have asked to be informed of Nkunku and all of that. Now, what would you say is a fair deal for sort of Garnacho, and how would you like to sort of replace him?
Yeah, I think it's so funny because I don't think I've seen the fan base so split on a player leaving or staying as much as Garnacho. Like, I feel like with Rashford, the general consensus is for him to leave. But with Garnacho, I feel like it's a 50-50 split. Like, I don't know. I haven't seen the fan base this split on a player in a long time. In terms of a reasonable price for him, I think 60 as a starting point is reasonable. Bear in mind, yeah, Manchester United, I know, and Chelsea reportedly have good relationships because of the fact that they fleeced us for Mason Mount. So it's like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of situation. But Manchester United shouldn't look to make it an easy deal for them. I really don't think so. He's on low wages, so it's not like Man United need to shift a big salary. My only kind of disappointment is that it's a Premier League team. Like that's I would never want to see a Man United player go to a Premier League team, let alone one of the big six. I didn't want Sancho to go. When people kind of entertained the idea of Marcus Rashford going to Arsenal, I was never for that, and I'm not going to be for that with Garnacho. That's why when Napoli came in, I said, well, if Man United need to sell him and they have no choice but to sell him, then I'd rather he goes to Napoli. But if he goes to Chelsea and the starting price is about 60 million, I think that's reasonable. If they can get add-ons on top of that, that's even better. Maybe even a sell-on clause. Now, in terms of replacements, the Tyler Dibbling thing is a really interesting one because doesn't he play on the right-hand side?
Yeah, more of a right-hand side. Sometimes he can play in a front two as well, but
Yeah.
mostly
So
right.
unless it's like a wing-back situation like with Ahmad, or he's playing in the 210s, I think 55 million for Dibbling is a bit extortionate. Given taking into consideration all the factors like what Garnacho is going for, the fact that Southampton are battling relegation, and I think not battling, they are getting relegated. And I think in the summer it'll probably be harder for them to get 55 million for him. So maybe they're thinking
100%.
January is the best bet to get 55 million for him. Now, my only concern, and like you mentioned it before, Man United need to find a balance of experienced senior players and young products and prodigies and upcoming talent, because it's all nice and good to have a lot of young talent, but when you don't have a lot of senior experience, then you know the question marks are there. And I like the idea of, because we've been linked to the young centre back at Arsenal, 18-year-old centre back,
Yeah.
and that's another young product that they're looking at for the academy and to bring in eventually to the first team. And that's all well and good, but Man United needs senior players and they need experienced senior players at top flight football. You know, the idea of Cunha, love that. I love that. How realistic is that though, do you think?
I don't know. He does flirt with the idea of coming to United in the
Yeah, he's
past,
always talking
but
about how
with
much he loves Man United.
it's like the pool. That's the question, because there's about 5-6 clubs in for Cunha. Forest are there, Arsenal are there. Everybody wants him because he's been good this season. He was obviously good last season, and it's, again, I'm so mixed on sort of Garnacho, because I think, you know, selling a young player because of probably PSR before they get good, I don't really like the idea of that, because that's not what United has been about.
Yeah.
And I also think, oh, is it a bit of recency bias with Garnacho because he was really exciting, and I think he's dropped off a bit. But then I'm also like, I don't see him as a 10 in Amorim system long term. I think he's a 4-3-3 winger. And if we sack Amorim, and Garnacho is really good at Chelsea, and we then getting a manager that plays a 4-3-3, it's one of those where you're going to be like, what have we done there? But then I also think, if you said to me, we can get at bare minimum base fee 60 million for Alejandro Garnacho, and we replace him with a player like Cunha, it makes sense because we need that experience. Because I think Garnacho is a prospect, and I think when you're a prospect at a big club like Man United, they're massively underperforming, it's definitely a lot harder to get the time and get the fans on side. And for me, like, if it's Chelsea, because they're them being Premier League rivals, I'd want 70 million, to be honest. Like Napoli, 60 million base fee, put a few add-ons in there. With Chelsea, I'd want 70 million, because I just think you've got 65 million for Kai Havertz, 55 million with Mason Mount 1 year left on this deal. And if Tyler Dibling's 55 million, who's had a much better season than Garnacho, but he's not better than Garnacho in my opinion. And Southampton, as you said, they're going to get relegated. And then even John Duran, who Villa were willing to sell him for like 35, 40 million in the summer. They rejected now nearly 60 million for him from West Ham. He's now like 85 million in the market. I'm thinking, you know what? It's not like Garnacho's on 300k a week. You know what? We need 60 million bare minimum. I don't really like the idea. I think Nkunku and João Felix could work in Amorim's system, but I think that's Chelsea getting someone off their books, and that's helping Chelsea out by taking a player. So I don't really like that. I'd rather it be, for me, if we sell Garnacho for a good fee and we get Cunha in to replace him, I'm okay with it. But if it's selling Garnacho, bringing in another young, raw, unproven talent, it's like, well, you're just selling one unproven talent for another unproven talent. And it's like, well, did we really need to do that? Could we have just been patient and let Garnacho develop? Are we being too biased. And I think, Amorim, I don't know if he wants to sell Garnacho or not because he's playing minutes in that. But I think one player that Amorim might be interested in selling could be Casemiro, because he's just not really had the minutes. He's been linked to Saudi, he's been linked to MLS. And even Amorim says he has to have the characteristics, and then I have to choose the player with the characteristics that I see in the game. So it's just that I have to make some choices. I want to play a style of game that is sometimes different from other coaches, and I have to choose based on that. I just see that as sort of Amorim saying, for my football that I want to play, Casemiro isn't the guy for me. What do you sort of take on this?
Yeah, I thought that was the case from I remember mid-December, I started to realize, wow, I ain't seen Casemiro play in a while. But also, this is not even on Amorim. This is, again, on, I think, Manchester United, the inability to shift him in the summer. I think when they knew they were getting Ugarte and, Man United went all out for Ugarte, it was like a 6-week or 5-week chase to get him. I think that was kind of confirmation that they were looking to move away from Casemiro. I know Erik ten Hag used Casemiro a lot and tried to slowly integrate Ugarte. But I remember April last season, there was already talks about him going to the Saudi league. So my issue is if you have a player like Casemiro, where it's been more than 9 months now, and you've been trying to shift him, you need to try a bit harder. And what shoots United in the foot all the time is salary. It's the wages. I think they could have shifted Casemiro if he was on 150, 180, even 200 like Antony. I think they might have been able to shift him. And I feel like with the Saudi Pro League, they're trying to look less like the payday destination for footballers, unless you are of an elite level. I'm talking about Neymar, Ronaldo, the Benzemas, those kind of players. I think they're trying to move away from that. I saw a report that said that Cristiano Ronaldo was pushing for Al Nassr to sign Casemiro, but they want to actually sign an attacking midfielder, not a defensive midfielder. So they don't really want to sign Casemiro, and because of his wages, he's expecting a double his salary. I mean, that's just greedy. That's like 600k. But I think the shortcomings are on United for this one. Again, like I said, Victor Lindelof, Christian Eriksen, Casemiro, these are all players that they've been wanting to shift and they just can't do it. And for far too long, I feel like players have been comfortable enough to be able to just run their contract down at Manchester United. And I thought over the last year or maybe 2, that would change. I feel like in the summer, it was Varane and Martial. They were the only 2 players whose contracts finished and they ran their contract down. But now I feel like, look how many players are going to leave probably in the summer whose quotation marks running their contract down. Manchester United need to be a bit more ruthless with getting players out of the door, even if they have to take a hit. And I know, with selling Casemiro, it would be one of those situations where if the club, the buying club, can't take on his salary, United will have to pay the difference in salary to Casemiro. They'll have to pay him out. And I don't know if you guys have read the latest Athletic article, but Manchester United are broke. They are struggling financially.
Yeah. It's not good. It's not good at the moment financially. I think, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's really frustrating with Casemiro because he's on, I think, £18 million a year. If he's not going to play, you need him out the door. And I have a bit of frustration with INEOS in the sense of, you've been so ruthless with this cost cut and this cost cut, but we can't get the players out. But then I'm also like, well, you didn't give Casemiro 350k a week. You didn't give Antony 200k a week. You didn't give Rashford 300k a week. If you actually look at the wages that players like Xerxes are on, it's nowhere near that kind of amount. And I think that's something that not just Man United are doing, but actually a lot of clubs I've noticed. You look at the wage bill of Juventus, the wages they used to give out compared to now Barcelona. I think wages are sort of starting to come down in football because it makes certain players so unsellable. And I think United just have to sort of lower that Casemiro asking price maybe a little bit and just hope the MLS comes in or Saudi.
What do you think is a price tag for Casemiro?
I think just take the 20 million. They want 30 million, but I think take the 20 million because you basically get 20 million with the wages. That's like 40 million. That's out the door. And it's like, now if Collier hadn't really impressed in those last few cameos, I'm a bit more wary about it. But I think, and this isn't to put too much pressure on Collier. I'm not expecting him to do madness, but I think the way that Amorim sort of put some trust in Collier these last few games in his ground coverage and his athleticism, I think we can maybe take that risk with letting Casemiro go in January and lowering the fee because he's not played, even though we've been crap. It's not like we've been crying out for Casemiro when we've been crap. Agate's been good for the most part. Maino's been hit and miss, but, there's potential there. He's had some good games. Bruno can do a job in the pivot. Collier's look good. The one player I do feel like, and this might be an unpopular opinion because I think we have to sell him because Ruben Amorim clearly doesn't want him, But there's a part of me that does feel like maybe Man United have missed Rashford in elements up top in recent games just due to the lack of goals and the lack of ruthlessness. But I'm also at the point where I think if Marcus Rashford plays for Man United again under Amorim, that's a failure on INEOS to back Amorim, because when you look at Amorim's comments, and this is someone that likes Rashford, that rates Rashford, but I wouldn't be happy just for the sake of Amorim if he comes back in, because it's clear Amorim doesn't want him. He makes comments like, with Rashford, we'll see. I don't really know what's going to happen. There's 8 days left. We will see. But he's not in the squad. Antony's agreed to move to Real Betis, but is still in the squad. And everybody knows Rashford's a much better player than Antony. But like, if he does stay, I do think we sort of need him on that sort of maybe left sort of 10 role. He's got goals on him, even though he hasn't been his best. I do feel like he could be a player we need. How do you feel about Rashford if he did come back in?
The thing is, yeah, I like Rashford, but I do think, like, for the betterment of his career and for the betterment of United, they should part ways. I think it would actually undermine Amorim if INEOS can't sell him, because then INEOS will find themselves in a situation where he's already missed, what, 8, 9 games now? It's been over a month, basically, since he last played. Yeah, it may be even 10. It's been over a month since he last played for Manchester United. So if he doesn't leave by the end of the window or on deadline day, are they going to let him sit out for another 4.5 months of football? Which, by the time you get to the summer, you're lucky if you get 25 million for him. And in that way, I feel like it undermines Amorim, because clearly Amorim has a thought process as to why he's not playing Marcus Rashford. Whatever it is, he's not letting too much on in terms of the media. And he's right in having his kind of thought process. He has to trust INEOS to get him out of the door. Because equally, I feel like a lot of the incomings is unfortunately hindered by outgoings, and Marcus Rashford is similar to Garnacho in the sense that it's an academy player. If they can sell him, it's full profit. If they can get his wages off the book, even better. So it would free up a lot of financial space for Manchester United in the January window. But then, like you said, Amorim finds himself it's next week Monday, deadline day, right? Next week Monday.
Yeah.
Tuesday, Amorim will find himself in a situation where, okay, Marcus Rashford's not going anywhere. What do I do now? Do I keep letting him sit out? Because I think he's been very picky as well with his wording as to why Rashford is not playing. It's not like I don't think he's given too much, but in the same time, I would like to know more, because I'm a bit curious, because I actually think maybe there's more to what we know about this, because he's still at Old Trafford watching the games. He's still turning up at Old Trafford to watch the games in full uniform, in full kit. And if INEOS can't shift him in the next week and a bit, Amorim will find himself in a sticky situation with fans, especially if Man United continue the way that they're playing over the last month and a bit, in terms of going a goal down, or, letting goals leak in, and, missing so many chances in front of goal. You let Garnacho go, you let Antony go. Are you telling me that the only other alternatives that you have to play in those inside roles are Bruno and Ahmad? That's impossible.
Yeah, we have to bring someone in if Garnacho goes, for sure. And if Rashford goes, maybe 2 people in. But I completely agree. I think there's way more going on with Rashford than we know. I think something's gone on. I don't know if it's INEOS because of FFP, pure profit, wages. Are they controlling this? But then I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's coming from Amorim. It's because he's training and this and that. And it's a bit of a weird one, because it's like, well, Antony's gone, but he makes the bench and Rashford doesn't, who's fully fit. For me, there's something more going on. And I like Rashford. I rate him. But I agree with you, said he needs to go for his career, I think, for the sake of us.
Yeah.
But it's like, I wouldn't mind Rashford coming back and playing for us, but then I would, because I think it's not fair on Amorim. It shows a failure of Amorim. If Amorim said, I want Rashford gone in January, and then he comes back and Amorim starts playing Rashford again, I actually like Rashford and have no issue seeing him on the pitch again. I would love it to work out for Rashford. I just think, this guy was dropped for 10 plus games and now we're playing him because we couldn't sell him. That's not a good look for Man United. And I'm just like, that's the sort of concern there. But you know what? We've got sort of under a week left to go in the January window. I think there's going to be a lot of movement in the next few days. And I'm sure you'll be covering it on your channel and your socials, Mina. So do let the people know where they can find you. Yeah,
you can find me Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Mina Football, if you obviously like Man United men and women's content, and just obviously all other kind of football content. You can find it there.
Yeah, big up, Mina. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks,
guys. Do check her out. I will put her links in the description. She does great content. Show her some love. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye.